What's up everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. It is week 2 of Fyter Fest and it's also Shark Week. So as part of that whole corporate network synergy, AEW is getting in on the spirit as well. It's why you saw Chompy, the Shark Week mascot, during the show this evening. It's also why there's a Shark Cage stipulation happening in the main event. But be that as it may, your opening match is a grudge match here as Brody King takes on Darby Allin. And if you like big versus little, or more particularly, the big guy just beating the hell out of the little guy for long periods of time, that's what this match was chock full of. I love Taz really angling on commentary toward like the potential new viewers. If you're just tuning in and wondering why a big guy's fighting a smaller guy, it's this. And like he mentioned that a couple of times at the course of this night, trying to explain like why the big guy was beating up the smaller guy and that sort of thing. So yeah, the story here obviously is King is just beating the hell out of Darby for most of this thing. He does get an opening though. He finally trips King up to slow him down enough to get a bit of a comeback. A big diving cannonball to the outside. We get a call back to the end of the Royal Rampage match, which King beat Darby last to win, where he has that sleeper hold. He passes out, drops him on the outside. This time there's a count out risk. Darby barely gets in before the 10 count, but then King lays him out with a really sick looking gonzo bomb to win the match. And that was pretty fun to see. I mean, yeah, really physical, hard hitting stuff. If you like that kind of stuff. I mean, nobody hits like Brody King and nobody sells like Darby Allin. So these two working together, which I've done before in the Independents, this is a match made in heaven. So it really worked for me. After the bell, King's not done with the beatdown, but Sting comes in to make the save. He wants it the Scorpion Death Drop, but the lights cut out, they come back up, and now Sting is face to face with Malachi Black, who sprays Sting with the Black Mist once he's held back. They beat him down, and then Miro's music hits, and Miro shows up on stage with his two-tone sunglasses for some reason, and just stares down the baddies. That's the end of the segment. So like I said, good opening matchup, very physical, fun to watch in that respect, and seeing Miro come out here, you know, it seemed like even when he was the TNT champion and was very clearly booked as a heel, the fans didn't really receive him that way. He was very much like a beloved heel in that respect. So I think him turning face here, because he's made it known he doesn't like House of Black either, that makes sense to me, and the fans seem to be totally there for it. Tony Schiavone is backstage with Cole Carter, and I had to look up who this guy was after watching the show because I had no idea who he was. I totally missed this guy. He was Troy Donovan in NXT 2.0, and he was actually part of Tony D'Angelo's group, but then he was released for failing a drug test, and I guess on the way out they killed him off in storyline. He was sleeping with the fishes, and Ricky Starks makes a reference to that when he and Powerhouse Hobbs interrupt him, because Carter is going to be challenging him for the FTW title later in the show. So then Carter responds by saying, you know, your future is going to look like your past when I beat you for the FTW title, and that's pretty much that. We'll see that match a little later on. Up next, Best Friends take on Wheeler Yuta and Jon Moxley. Chucky T and Trent are upset that Yuta, who used to roll with them, has now signed on with the Blackpool Combat Club, and so they're looking for revenge. I love when Orange Cassidy joins William Regal on commentary, and there's a period where Regal has to like calmly explain to Orange, like, look, this is why Yuta left the group. He wanted to join the Blackpool Combat Club because it was better for his career. He wasn't trying to be snarky about it. He was just like, look, there's only a ceiling he was going to hit with you guys. Like, this is going to be better for him. You just have to trust me. Like, he wasn't angry toward Orange. He wasn't trying to be snarky about it. He was just telling him how it was, and I appreciate that. Chuck is showing some of his nasty side, throwing Wheeler against the barricade a couple of times before the break. Moxley gets the hot tag and is all over the place. Yuta withstands 2 different pile drivers and still is able to kick out. Very competitive stuff here. We got a quadruple down at one point. Yuta ends up winning the match for his team by tying Trent up in a couple of knots in the seatbelt hold and pinning him to win the match. So I thought it was a good tag team match. Nothing but really pride on the line here, and it's kind of wrapping up a storyline here to explain why Yuta jumped ship from group to group. I think that Best Friends looked really good against these 2 competitors. You know they weren't going to win, but they put up a really good fight still, and good showing for Yuta as well. I'm definitely excited for he and Daniel Garcia's match on Saturday for the pure title. Speaking of Death Before Dishonor, which I will be giving my predictions for later in this video, we get a hype package for the ROH World Title match, Jonathan Gresham versus Claudio Castagnoli. I smiled a bit watching this hype package because we did get a couple of shots of Final Battle last year where Gresham wins the title, and you can see me very clearly on the hard cam during that match when the whole rest of the locker room is surrounding the ring. So hey, I made it on the hype package. It's time for the Swerve On Our Glory tag title celebration. Of course, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee won the AEW tag titles last week on Dynamite, and they're celebrating here. There's cake at ringside. I'll give you 2 guesses what happens to that cake by the end of the segment. The first guess does not count. So they're very gracious. Keith Lee on the mic thanking the fans and wants to toast to a limitless tag team title run. But then Mark Sterling and Tony Nese stop the party, and they still have their Get Swerve Out of AEW petition, and they want to go to their rapper friend Kevin Gates, who Swerve and Keith gave a shout out to earlier in the promo. So yes, they want the friend of the tag team champions to sign a petition that would get rid of one of the friends. That makes all the sense in the world. So Kevin ends up punching Tony Nese right in the jaw. It looked like a really stiff punch there. And then Swerve throws the cake into Mark Sterling's face. And they did the thing, you know, when there's cake in wrestling, guarantee you somebody's wearing it. So they did the thing. You know, besides that though, this segment didn't do much for me. It was just, hey, you know, they're celebrating the tag title win. And that was that pretty much. Backstage with John Silver and Alex Reynolds, they want to give a peace offering to the Butcher and the Blade, a pair of matching t-shirts that say Butch on them. But Butcher and Blade don't take kindly to that. They start beating up the Dark Order members. Then Hangman Page makes the save. So that's how that segment ends. And then we see Christian Cage and Luchasaurus taking on the Varsity Blondes, who don't get an entrance. And as I've said before on this channel, no entrance, no victory. Christian Cage is legally in this match for all of like 5 seconds before he tags out Luchasaurus, who does all the dirty work. He squashes Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman fairly quickly, and then Christian comes in, picks up the scraps, covers Pillman to win the match. That happens. Christian celebrates. He's on Luchasaurus' shoulders as if he were Jungle Boy. Speaking of which, Tarzan Boy finally plays over the speakers, and Jungle Boy makes his long-awaited return. We've not seen him in several weeks. He's got a chair in hand, makes his way down the ramp. Luchasaurus stops him. They have a stare down, and then Luchasaurus takes a step to the side and lets Jungle Boy go after Christian. So then the crowd erupts for that, by the way. They love that moment there. So Jungle Boy chasing Christian through the crowd and out of the arena as Tarzan Boy keeps playing. That's great foot chase music, by the way. So anyway, that was a very interesting segment. Not so much the match, but this post-match stuff with Luchasaurus seemingly just back on Jungle Boy's side. Does he really have that weak of a constitution, that weak of integrity to change on the dime like that? Or is it a ruse? Maybe they're kind of lulling Jungle Boy into a false sense of security for when they do have that matchup inevitably. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're kind of teasing something here with a possible Jurassic Express reunion, but it seems after everything they've done so far to get to this point, for it to revert back to that seems awfully premature. So we'll just kind of put a pin in it and see how it goes. Backstage with the Gun Club, they're asked why they haven't answered the Acclaim's challenge. And they say they carried that team for months and they have cut all ties with them. But Austin Gunn is not done with Max Caster. He wants to challenge him to a rap battle this Friday on Rampage. Should be very entertaining in its own way. I'm going to go to the FTW Championship match now. The open challenge as Ricky Starks defends against Cole Carter. And now, I missed this guy the entirety of his run at NXT. Because I stopped watching and reviewing it months ago, and then he come and gone from Tony D'Angelo's group. So he was a blank slate to me. I had no idea who this guy was, but I was impressed. I think he's definitely has a lot of potential, a lot of upside. I think in a few years he could be very successful. I think he had a good showing here against Starks. The crowd was not into him. Any offense that Cole did was just booed. I guess because he's not Ricky Starks, and he's one of those guys, kind of like Miro, where it's like, yeah, he's a heel, but he's a heel the fans love to cheer. So what are you really going to do? Cole goes for a 450 splash. He misses it and walks right into a spear for Starks to win and retain. Ricky on the mic after the match says he's feeling good about himself. He wants to do one more open challenge for the hell of it right now. And Danhausen answers the call. And he says he wants that title match right now. But then Ricky balks and says, hey, actually, I'm not in such a good shape right now. Let's do this next week. Let's wait a week and then we'll have the title match. So that's what we have next week. Go Dan is going to be fighting for the FTW Championship at Fight for the Fallen. There's a backstage interview with Athena, Chris Statlander, Willow Nightingale. Chris is upset she's not part of the tag team match coming up later on, but Willow and Athena are very confident in their abilities, and they're also confident Chris will get a championship match in the near future. FTR, the tag team champions of everything, they've made their way to the ring for some promo time. They're going to be talking about the Briscoes in their 2 out of 3 falls match in the rematch for the ROH tag titles at Death Before Dishonor. Cash putting over the Briscoes for their legacy and how good they are as a team, but they'll have to take those belts from their cold, dead hands. And then Dax chimes in with his part of the promo. It's really the biggest takeaway from this thing, too. He tells a story about a 5-year-old girl with an irregular heartbeat, and finds that she's got a hole in her heart. And then she works really hard to get better, and then 3 years later, when she's 8, the hole's totally gone. And that girl is Dax's daughter. And it gets a really big pop, and he says, this is a great line here, I'm going to fight like an 8-year-old girl, and I'm going to kick your ass. Like, man, what a great babyface line that was. Really solid promo here. I think Dax's part was the clear better part of the promo, and that being said, it was just a promo to the crowd about the pay-per-view match, and that's pretty much all it was, but still pretty good promo. Then we get Jay Lethal with his crew backstage, once again talking about Samoa Joe, Death Before Dishonor. He can't wait to become the TV champion on Saturday. Then Christopher Daniels stands up for Samoa Joe. He comes in there and challenges Lethal to a bit of a warm-up match the night before on Rampage Friday. That should be a great throwback match. Up next, Jade Cargill filling in for an injured Layla Gray. She's teaming up with Kiera Hogan to take on Willow, Nightingale, and Athena. The baddies are accompanied by rapper Jermaine Dupri. Jade is from Atlanta, where this week's show is, so she gets a babyface reaction. Again, in general, she's kind of becoming a heel that gets cheered, and now when she's in the home territory, of course it's going to happen. I love Willow's early offense against Hogan here. Like a minute later, after all that big rolling senton off the apron onto the floor, then Athena follows up with a dive just before the break. We get this face-off with Jade and Athena. It ends up being kind of a stalemate. Athena, in the end, is checked into the steel steps when Stokely gets in her Hathaway. See what I did there? And then Jade hitting Willow with Jaded to win the match. I thought this was a really good matchup here with the ladies. They made good use of their time, and I think it was just overall really good showing. You just wish you saw more than one like in-ring storyline progression with the ladies per show. And I say that because our very next bit of women's build takes place in a backstage promo here with Thunderstorm. And Thunder Rosa says she's going to be defending her women's world title next week at Fight for the Fallen against Yamashita, and she says she's going to win. But then in come Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter to interrupt once again, and Britt kind of heels on Thunder a little bit here and declares that she and Jamie this Friday will be teaming up and will be in action on Rampage. So that's cool. It's time for our main event, the Barbed Wire Everywhere Death Match. Well, everywhere except the hard cam side of the ring. I get it, because the barbed wire on the ropes can obscure the view. You want a clear view. I get that. Anyway, Eddie Kingston challenging the Painmaker, Chris Jericho. So Jericho's put the fedora and the face paint back on to go to that place and be evil and more devious as the Painmaker here. So, but Kingston gets the jump on Jericho from the beginning here. He bops him with Justin Roberts' barbed wire wrapped mic, which I thought was a hilarious visual. Just to cut to Roberts, he's got this big handful of barbed wire. So Jericho dinks him with the mic and makes him bleed and reminds everyone it's Shark Week. I like he stays on brand. And yeah, Kingston is really beating up Jericho a lot early on here, throwing him into barbed wire many times. More back and forth here involving the barbed wire. Jericho with a Hurricane Rana off the top rope to get his start on offense for this matchup. At one point, he is dropped crotch first into the barbed wire on the rope, and Taz calls it sliced up Yambag City. Well, he's not wrong, I guess. And then we've got the superplex off the apron through a barbed wire table. Ty Conti shows up amongst the wreckage, and she's confronting Ruby Soho with the controls. Anna Jay wants to get in between them, but psych, she actually beats up Ruby, and now she and Ty are good friends again. So she's making better decisions for her career. That was the seed they were planting last week. And so anyway, Ty's got the keys, and they lower the chart cage. She has the keys. She can't unlock them, so that's fun. And then you've got like members of Jericho Appreciation Society just slipping through the bars. They could have done it the whole time. So like, what are we even doing here? So the JAS come into the ring. They're beating down Kingston for a while, 4-1. Then out come Ortiz and the Blackpool Combat Club to chase them off and even it up once again. Eddie kicks out of the code breaker. Jericho kicks out of the back fist. In the end, Kingston has got Jericho wrapped up in barbed wire as he applies the stretch plum submission. But in comes Sammy Guevara to beat up Kingston a little bit, and that allows Jericho to hit the barbed wire wrapped Judas effect to win the matchup. And so then after the match, you've got Guevara and Jericho try to do some more of a hurting, and then we get some weird thing that looks like they messed it up where Kingston kind of slips out of the attack, and he attacks them both, throws Jericho off the apron through the barbed wire spider web on the floor, and you barely have any time to really register or react to that before you have to go off the air. So clearly they were kind of rushing for time based on how that whole thing went. But why have Kingston lose if you're going to have him stand tall in the end? Like, just just let him win. He needed this win. And, you know, it's Jericho bringing out the rare Painmaker thing. I get it. That's supposed to be his equivalent to like the Demon King for Finn Balor, where he's supposed to be more powerful and win stuff. But I mean, the match was like fun in the beginning, and then it got crazy overbooked, and then I think just rough looking by the end. It was one of those things where I think you kind of had, they made a mistake there. I think Kingston should have been the one to win that matchup. I think that it had some cool moments, but these two have had better interactions together. They've had better matches, and I think that this was not the best. It seems that whenever AEW tries to go with the extreme or the ultraviolet, for the most part, it just seems like they're overthinking it. And then that's why you have shit like this, where like the key doesn't work for the lock, and you got people slipping through the bars, and why you've got like this, all this stuff with the barbed wire and stuff. It just seemed like it was excessive. I think had Kingston won, it would have meant a lot more to have that match the way it was. So my grade for this week's Dynamite is a C, right down the middle. I think there were some strong points to this show. I liked Brody King, Darby Allin. I liked the women's tag team match. Jungle Boy's return was cool, and I liked the pop that Luchasaurus got for sidestepping, but again, not sure where that's going to go, if there's a swerve or not. And I think, speaking of swerve, the tag title celebration, it was okay. Somebody wore a cake, and I think that's what everyone expected. But I think besides that, it was like, okay, it was there for me. And again, the main event, I think it could have been so much more, but then I think it was booked not that great, and then the wrong guy won. And I don't often complain about something like that, but I think this is one of those things where Kingston really needed the win here. And again, when they get violent, when they have barbed wire, or they have explosives, or they have cages and stuff, sometimes they just try and get too cute with it, and it ends up kind of backfiring on them. It makes them look kind of Bush League. And so I don't know if it means they got to get away from that stuff. I think that when they do those kind of violent things and they work, then they really work. But when they whiff, boy, you can tell. So I don't know about this one. I think they need to kind of take a look at this and examine how often they can really go to this well. All right, before I get into my predictions for this Saturday's Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view, I have to give you the warning. I will not be able to watch and review the show in a very timely fashion because I will be busy this Saturday night. I'm helping call the action for Midget Wrestling Warriors in Canyonville, Oregon, alongside Garrett Furtick. I'll be busy that night, so won't be able to get the review for Death Before Dishonor out until hopefully sometime next week before I leave for Nashville, and that's a whole other ball of wax. SummerSlam review is going to be delayed too, probably, so there's going to be some things I have to catch up on, so forgive me for that, but I will give you my predictions for Death Before Dishonor happening this Saturday night in Lowell, Massachusetts. Let's begin with a match they announced tonight, in fact, and one I'm very excited about because of who's involved. The ROH six-man tag titles are going to be on the line as the Righteous, that's Vincent, Bateman, and Dutch, defend against Dalton Castle and the boys. Yes, I love the Righteous. I love Dalton Castle. I love everything about this. And the fact that the six-man tag titles are brought back and they're going to be a part of this ROH, also really cool to see. ROH got their six-man tag titles in there before AEW introduced a trios tag title. So good to see that being represented. I think this is going to be a fun match. I like all these guys. I do believe that the Righteous will retain. Wheeler Yuta defends the ROH Pure Championship against Daniel Garcia. It's going to be Blackpool Combat Club versus Jericho Appreciation Society. This one, I feel a lot of these title matches I'm kind of torn on. I think you make an argument for either side to win. I like where Wheeler Yuta is right now, and I think him being the pure champion is a cool look. I think it's great. Does Garcia I think he'd be somebody who'd be a good pure champion. I can see Garcia winning, and it'd be like a feather in the cap for the Jericho Appreciation Society and everything, to continue that feud going. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one to pick. I think you could, again, it's a coin flip for me. If I had to, go with my gut reaction here, I believe that Garcia is going to win this one and become the new pure champion. Mercedes Martinez will defend the ROH Women's Championship against Serena Deeb in a match I'm also looking forward to. I think these two have styles that will mesh very well together. I think this will be a good technical matchup here. And I'm kind of torn and conflicted as to who could win this one. I think Mercedes is champion. The whole ROH champion thing, it's not that they have a whole lot of opportunities to show up at the moment and get defenses and get screen time and stuff. So it's hard to judge, like, oh, is this a good reign or not? I think Mercedes winning the belt was really cool. It was kind of a career-defining moment for her. I think Serena's in the same camp where she's not won a women's championship in a major organization. So this could be her time as well. And of course, with the women's division in AEW, it being so competitive and so tough there, it's hard to see either of those ladies becoming a TBS or an AEW Women's Champ anytime soon. So, again, tough to pick, but I'm going to go and say Serena Deeb will become the new Women's Champion. Samoa Joe defends the World TV title against Jade Lethal in a match this is the match they've been building toward the most for Death Before Dishonor by far. And so there's, of course, a lot of this history behind it. They showed you as much at the Countdown show. This goes back to the very, very far back early days of ROH. I think the story really tells itself. I think the stuff with, Jay Lethal aligning himself with Sanjay Dutt and Satnam Singh, I don't really know how well that ties into the story particularly, but I guess we'll have to see where that alliance goes down the line. But I think this is another thing where, man, Samoa Joe as the champion feels like it was just kind of a stopgap thing, transitioning from Rhett Titus to Minoru Suzuki to Samoa Joe, I feel like a safe route to go. And again, yay for Joe, good feather in his cap and everything. But I feel this is an opportunity to put the belt on Lethal and have him have that storyline. Him, being when he had the heel turn in Texas and all that stuff since then. I think, if Joe is going to be in a more downgraded capacity, I think it makes more sense for Lethal to win the championship here. So that's kind of my prediction. Jonathan Gresham defends the ROH World Championship against Claudio Castagnoli of the Blackpool Combat Club. This match, oh boy, this one's going to be terrific because Jonathan Gresham, I think, is the best technical wrestler alive today. If he's not the best, he's certainly up there. I'd put him in maybe top 3 in that case. And Claudio Castagnoli, no slouch himself. I think the height disparity with these two is going to be very impressive because, Gresham's a short guy, Claudio's a tall guy. So I think that disparity will be apparent here. But these two are going to, I think, work really well together. These two have very, very good complementary styles. And I'm looking forward to this match quite a lot. Now, I'm curious to what we're going to do with this one because, you could put the belt on Claudio and keep his kind of like win streak going as somebody who's new to AEW and have him kind of represent ROH in the Blackpool Combat Club. I could see that. I just wonder, I know I would like to see Gresham do more with the championship now that it's being brought back and used more on TV here. Have him keep carrying that brand. He is the foundation after all. So yeah, I'm really torn with this one. I think, gosh, again, really tough. And I think you could, I don't think there's shame in Claudio losing this one. It would really do a good job putting Jonathan over, especially for an audience that might not be as familiar with him if they didn't watch this stuff in ROH in the before time. So I think this is going to be a great match. I don't know if I want Claudio to have the belt right now. I think he could, but I think I'm going to say Gresham retains. And finally, the 2 out of 3 falls match for the ROH tag belts, the rematch to one of the best matches you'll see all year, frankly, as FTR defends against Mark and Jay, the Briscoe brothers. This is going to be, I think, another tremendous matchup. They've talked about the history that the Briscoes have with 2 out of 3 falls matches and how they've done so well with those for the tag belts. So that's a great little wrinkle in the storyline for these guys. Again, I have no doubt this match is going to steal the show. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the main event over Gresham Castagnoli. So I think this will be worth the hype. It will follow the hype, I would hope. As far as who's going to win, I think it's going to be FTR retaining. I just don't see a point here where the Briscoes are going to be, they could be part of ROH for a while, but I don't know if I'm going to see them just win the belts back so soon. That seems unnecessary to me. I think that they're still the record-holding champions, 12-time champs. That's not going to get broken ever. So I think that they can have that, and FTR can win here and retain. It'll still be a great match. It'll be a great showing for both teams. But my prediction here is FTR will retain. But let me know what you think is going to happen this Saturday in the comments section below. And also, I want to hear what you have to say about this week's Dynamite, the Barbed Wire Everywhere Death Match. I want to hear your thoughts about that in the comments as well. Once again, I apologize. I will not get Death Before Dishonor reviewed this coming weekend. It'll have to be sometime later in the week. I apologize for that, but do stay tuned for that. And until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.